Hello, PJ.
Hi there. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, LinkedIn Live, to talk about transferable skills from many different ways. And I would and so basically, what I would love to hear is have you introduce yourself so that our guests, our listeners and our viewers who might not know you yet, could get to know you a little bit better. And so, if you could tell us 5 facts about yourself through the typical working out loud method, that would be wonderful.
All right. All right. Good. Thanks for having me here. All right. So I'm PJ. 5 facts about me. I'm a dad. I have one kid that was born during the pandemic. So I'm trying to cope with a whole bunch of new things that happen in my life. I love sports, but I don't do a lot of the sports, mostly in the pandemic, but I love watching the sports and I try to create incentives for my kids to love sports as well. I love eating different things and trying different meals from different parts of the world. Not very good at cooking though. And with the pandemic, I gained 10 kilograms of weight, which basically is like 22 pounds of weight. Is that it? Was that five?
I know that. I know this feeling. I know this feeling. I have very good cooks. My husband and my 2 boys love to cook, which has pluses and minuses.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so, do you want to Sorry, I interrupted you. Are there other facts you wanted to share with our guests?
Well, I'm really into early child development. So I like to study that. I like to do research and read papers that are related to early child development. And I used to do that before my child was born. So that was not an incentive. It was sort of an incentive when my kid was born to read more about it. But I had this interest a long time ago, you know, long time before my child was actually born. So I really love learning more about brain architecture and early child development.
That really is amazing. And so I'm curious. So you've done a lot of research, but before you started your career, did you actually have any experience at all with caregiving?
I would say that I did not have any formal experience, but I used to do a lot of things that involved caregiving and mostly related to children. So I volunteer in different organizations to tell kids stories or play with kids. I used to be a coach for the baseball miracle league in Texas when I would play with a whole bunch of children. So we'll spend like the afternoon and the Saturday playing baseball. So I've always felt like that need to get involved because I love children, always loved children. And so to a certain extent, that makes a lot of what caregiving entails, right? To really care about those children and be sort of a mentor to them to try to teach them, how to do good stuff, how to enjoy life, how to, have good time with friends. So all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds wonderful. And, you know, I also would like to say hello to anybody who is listening to us today. And if you have any questions, please put it into the comments, or anybody who is viewing it afterwards or is going to listen to us in a podcast format. And now, PJ, it sounds like you've done so much, research as well as actual, playing with kids. So now, when you were looking at your career, did you anticipate? Well, I imagine you didn't anticipate a pandemic, but did you anticipate there to be a big part or part of your career to involve also caregiving?
Yeah. Well, about the pandemic, I guess like not a lot of people anticipated that, but thinking about career wise on a corporation, spectrum, I think I never thought. Well, yeah, I can say that I never thought that what I was doing by then, like playing with children, telling them stories, sitting with them, on the circle and playing around. I never created that correlation that this on career spectrum can help me a lot. Never thought that way. But if I'm going to look backwards, now I can see how much of impact that generated. And I can guarantee that basically I am where I am today, doing what I'm doing today. And there's a big chunk of of why I'm in this spot right now. It's because of what I did in the past by playing around with children during this caregiving type of work. Indeed.
That Wow, it's so interesting because I feel often people underestimate or don't really think about, myself included, what transferable skills one can really gain from many different aspects in one's life. And now, you said in the introduction that you have become a dad during the pandemic, and I can only imagine being working, being a stay-at-home dad at the same time. Maybe could you sort of share, what that entailed and what skills you've learned doing that?
Oh yeah, it was a really a roller coaster year, 2020, and 2021 is not being a lot different. But yeah, my child was born in August 2020, and I was working, full time, working from home. My child was born. Due to the pandemic, I was let go 3 days before my child was born. So then I've lost insurance and I lost all those. So I have my child. I have to start looking for a job to provide my child, at home, my wife, and everything. And at the same time, taking care of my new child, learning how to take care of this child. So it was a really challenging. Well, all things went out well. I was able to find another job. And, I passed through everything that everybody that has a new child passed through, like sleepless nights and learn a whole bunch of different things at the same time that I had to learn how to do my new job at the new company that I was hired for. So it was very cumbersome to an extent, but I knew everything gonna be all right, because I mean it, I wouldn't I wouldn't expect it to fail because I thought there's no really a way to fail, right? And what I see a lot that happens unfortunately in the lives of many people is that they and although we can use a lot of things that we we learn while caregiving to our job. There's some competition that we do have in the corporations that we don't need to have while taking care of another person, right? You don't need to you know uh, kill yourself trying to be the best dad in the world because you're not competing with other dads. You just have to be the best dad for your own kid, the best husband for your own wife and all that. So since I never had this competition uh, way of viewing things, at my home, so I knew everything is going to be all right. I was just going through the struggle that anybody on that same situation would have to go to.
Yeah. And I can imagine that the fact that you were interested in early childhood development beforehand already helped you to apply in practice some of the things you had learned.
Oh yeah, yeah. I use all of that, and even to this day, I mean, I'm part of the of a collab of scientific parents, and we do a lot of testing and scientific studies with our kids. And my child participated in a study when he was 3 months old, and he participated in others. And even to this day, he participated on studies, on longitudinal studies that will definitely, I mean, help other parents, along the way. But the idea of me having him helping me on those research as well is that I want him to learn that just the first day that he was born, he was already helping mankind in a way, like by participating on research and trying to give some, good information for other parents that will have a child anytime soon.
That is just wonderful. And now, is like, do you in your like neighborhood, are there like, again, with the pandemic it probably hasn't been that easy, but are there other dads that you have maybe interacted with?
Yeah, I interact more with that within the company, right? That I work within our company. We do have ERGs, for several type of subjects, and I am also part of an ERG related to family. So we do a lot of research, and then we translate this research in a way that can be consumed by employees. There are parents that want to consume this type of research. So, in talking to them, they're going to this through the same struggles I've been going to. So I'm no special in here, but I see there are a lot of things going on, and there are some people that they have a little bit more of flexibility because they live closer to, their relatives. So there are grandparents that sometimes can come to help them out. It's not my case, like both of the grandmothers. My child doesn't have any grandfather, but the grandmothers they live far further away, so it's kind of hard for them to come and help. And then they can come and help for a specific amount of time because they have their own duties at home as well. But yeah, I do talk to some, not in my neighborhood, no, the close by because of the pandemic as well. But yeah, I do
Right.
talk to people online.
Yeah. And so now, if you had to share with somebody who is, say, becoming a future dad, like three transferable skills that you feel you have learned from becoming a dad and, and dealing with a young child, what would you tell them?
I think the main one that I can tell you is the relationship, because whatever job you got to do, you have to relate to other people's, right? You got to talk to other people. If you're a salesperson, you have to have a relationship with the person you're selling to. If you work with something different, like in my case, I'm a customer success manager and I work with project management. So I talk with a lot of clients on a daily basis. And by having that relationship with a child, it helps a lot having relationship with adults, because if you can relate to a child, you have the patience to talk to the child, you have the care for the child. The child will ask you the same question 3 4 times, and you have the patience to try to teach that child because it's your child. You love him or her, right? And so if you have that, I think you're going to do well with clients anywhere, because you're going to have that patience and that passion as well, and you will understand that from your knowledge, the client has a different knowledge, right? The client has knowledge about their own company or their own area, their own industry, and you have knowledge about your business or the work that you do. So having that patient to explain, it's really important. Another thing that I will say is prioritization, right? Because when you have a child, you need to learn how to prioritize. And sometimes, maybe you guys are listening to my child is screaming right here in the back. I don't know if it's possible, but he is yelling a
Yes.
little bit. So sometimes you have to
Children.
prioritize, right? There are many times that I've been in meetings and my child would come here and climb up on my leg, and then you showed up in the meeting, and everybody say, "Oh, so cute." All right, that disrupt the meeting a little bit, but you need to learn how to prioritize. Okay, now I'm in a meeting. All right, guys, give me like 15 seconds. Let me put the child to her mother or anything like that. So know to really prioritize and knowing that, oh, sometimes I have to leave a little early my job or start a little late in the day because I need to prioritize or the things are important. And I think the third thing will be it will be being organized, right? And I mean that I think that relates a lot with prioritization, but being organized because sometimes when like something like this happened, the child starts yelling. Not, now I'm not caring much because I know, his with mom right there and everything's gonna be fine. But sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes she is in a meeting, I'm in the meeting, and then things needs to be organized because we need to use our time the best possible way because that's in a scarce resource. So know where the things are. All right, so nappy time, I know where I need to go to do the nappy change, and I go and I do this. And other than that, taking breaks and having fun with your child. He or she is expecting that from you as it is from me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, PJ. And, so one thing when I was doing my research about you, what I also found really interesting, what you talked about, transferable skills from learning a new language. So in the UK, it's English. And I'd love you to share this a little bit with our audience. Why, one can gain so many skills in addition to learning the actual language.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot on that from the University of Washington, which is one of the top universities doing that type of research on brain architecture of bilingual children. I believe by learning a different language, it's basically your brain architecture changes, right? There are new connections that are created through synapses, and that will help you think differently about everything you think about. So there are different ways of thinking. It will help us thinking on like think through things in a different way because of those connections. One of the things that I tell like all the parents that I meet is that if you know to speak two languages, at home, do speak two languages at home. Make your child get used to listen to different languages. Get them exposure to that because that is important. It will help them create those brain connections and it will help them on the long run. You may see that, all right, it's not making any difference. I've been talking, I've been speaking in English and in French here because I live in Canada and I don't see any difference. I've been 2 months. All right, it's not as quick as one would like to, right? It may take a little longer, but here at home, I only speak English with my child. My wife only speaks Portuguese, and then we try to raise our child by being bilingual. If you had the opportunity to get him exposure to other languages, that also will be cool. Will be cool. So I tell everybody that I can look because I know a lot of people that they are bilingual or trilingual, right? But they take it for granted while at home and do not speak with their child on a different language, only on their mother tongue. And tell, look, you're missing out because this can help your child so much in the long run, not only by being bilingual and hey, now I speak two languages, I can find a job easier. No, not that, but the bilingual child or the bilingual person is able to think about all sort of things in different ways, in more ways than somebody that is not bilingual is. So, and I mean, and this is specific science. This is not my opinion. There's a whole bunch of data related to that. And as I mentioned, University of Washington, if anybody wants to go there, they have a website called iLabs that have many information and many studies. There's even a free course that anybody can take, 22 classes about the subject, and it's super interesting.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, it's and I raised my kids, or I tried to raise them in German and in English, and I think one of the things I've learned is no matter how often and how frequently they might respond back into in the majority language, they still are learning and they're still listening. And it's funny how often when we go somewhere and they do not want somebody to understand what we are talking, then they voluntarily switch into the secret language to share. So
Yes.
yes, but I agree. It takes patience. Yes, yes. So one other question I had is, now you've lived in multiple countries, and like, again, what kind of skills do you feel you have learned that has helped you in your professional life by living in different countries?
Well, uh, I mean, knowing different cultures is so helpful for to talk to other people, to relate to other people. Today, I talk to people from, I would say, 40 different countries, in a week,
Wow.
and so that is, while I was living in a different country, I wasn't working on what I was doing today. So I wasn't talked to that many people from different countries before. But if you think that the importance of that, and looking back, so how much that helped me on developing my work today, it was so important because by having this sort of boundaryless, mindset, you are much more willing to create rapport with the person you're talking to, with your client, with your boss. Like, my boss doesn't live in the country that I live. He lives like 10,000 miles away from me. And, so I was in the other side of the hemisphere. And I talked to him, and he lives in the US. I live here in Brazil, but he is from Serbia. And, so there are a lot of things involved by him living in the US, but being from another country. There is also like some of the culture that he carries on during his day-to-day activities. So I think it's super important to have this, this opportunity. And I believe really everything is related to opportunity, because there are some people that they do not have this opportunity. But I tell every parent, if you do have the opportunity of really teaching to your child about other cultures, and taking your child to live at least for a week or two, if can be more, much better. But having this experience and this exposure to other cultures and how people do things differently, to understand that everybody is an individual, is singular, and doing things in a way doesn't mean that is the only way that things can be done. People, in Europe, they do things in a different way, and they do it well. They are living well, they're happy with their lives. People in the US, they do things in a different way, but they're happy with their lives, and they're doing well as well. So I think this experience is priceless.
Thank you so much, PJ. Yes, and I agree. I feel like when you live in one country, you get so used to, or you don't know any other way, right? That certain things are done like this, and you go and start living in another country, you're like, oh, this is not necessarily the way it needs to be done. It's just customs, and yeah, I fully agree. It sort of opens oneself up, and it makes one more flexible, and also maybe reflect upon one's own home country, what things are done and why they are done that way. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
I could I could talk with you for a very long time, but we're coming to an end of our conversation. Now, is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers or listeners about, transferable skills from many different parts of one's life?
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell people, to hang in there if they're tired about the pandemic. We all are, I believe. But keep doing the best job you can do. Don't, don't be mean to yourself. Don't carry more burden than you already have to carry during this pandemic, having to care for your family and everybody that surrounds you. Maybe be nice to yourself, and there's no right way of raising a child, right? Everybody has their own way of raising a child. The only thing that is common to everyone and every family and that every child needs is love. So if this is the base, just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna do well. You're gonna do fine, and we're all gonna get out of this alive and happy.
Well, thank you so much, PJ. And I just looked into the chat and I see Irenke Kronegemann is she commented. So hello, Irenke. Thank you so much for watching us. And another person, unfortunately, I can't pronounce that person's name. And then there is Valenka as well. Hello. And yeah, thank you very much for people from all over the world viewing, watching us. So, and it's been so interesting, PJ, to get your perspective as a dad, as somebody who has traveled and lived in different countries. So, thank you very much again for being my guest today.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. And I just put in a little slide so people who would like to listen to us, they can see the podcast. So thank you again. Goodbye.
Bye.